Kansas every year in the summers in high school.
I'm sure I wasn't on the job any more than a week when Gardner called me in the office and gave me his address and phone number and got a rental car or whatever we were driving those days, and he says, the best player in Kansas is in Wellington, Kansas. See what kind of recruiter you are.
He really recruited my parents. And Tex was such a tenacious recruiter that he just kept coming back, and the foreman on the railroad finally told me, he said, listen, young man, you better make a decision or you're going to be fired.
For some reason, I hope I was part of it, he decided on Kansas State.
Ernie was a very ferocious player. When he came to play, he played to win. And he valued the bitter end.
He could rebound, he could post you up inside, he could just do about anything. Good defensively too. He knew how to play the game and he played real hard.
Ernie Barrett would do whatever was needed to win, and he could do a lot of things very, very well. Defend, rebound, if you wanted him to score, he'd score. Barrett on a lesser team would have been a superstar, probably statistically, but he was playing on these teams that were just loaded with talent.
That team 50-51 that Ernie played on, Ernie and Jim Iverson and Bob Rousey and Lou Hitch and Jack Stone and Eddie Head, I tell you, that's one of the best basketball teams anybody could coach.
He was a leader. He expected everybody else to do their part, and he got everybody's attention to do what they're supposed to do, and everybody really did.
One of the most competitive people I personally have ever been around. And on the basketball court, he really got with it.
Ernie was very, very tough and very skilled. Ernie could shoot the lights out of the basket. And around under the hoop, he's strong as an ox. And of course, when you started pushing back and you started gaining ground, then you knew you had arrived. But Ernie was a very, very skilled ball player.
If he'd have played in a system of play where the guards were more prevalent as far as scoring was concerned, and he also maybe would have played 4 years, he could have been the leading scorer in the history of Kansas State basketball because he was a great, great shooter. My experience against Ernie for 2 years before the season started made my job easy when I had to guard basically the guys who were considered to be the best scorers on the other teams that we played against, because there wasn't anybody as good as Ernie Barrett.
I remember one time out at Tex Winter's basketball camp, I made a big mistake, never forgot, is I blocked one of Ernie Barrett's shots, which is, you never do that. And Ernie was the competitor, and he was getting ready to shoot. It was a small court, and I just timed it right, and I went down, lay in the layup, and I felt this giant grunting behind me, and Ernie jumped on top of me like a bear, and he goes, "Arr!" He popped me down on the floor, and he just, don't ever do that again. I said, okay, Ernie.
He would have been a great head basketball coach, and I think taking teams to the Final Four and NCAA titles. But he he just loved Kansas State and chose to stay there as an administrator and a fundraiser. It was hard to turn Ernie down anytime he'd ask you anything.
You look around modern day Kansas State and where is Ernie Barrett's imprint not felt? I mean, you look at the football stadium, you look at Bramlage Coliseum, all of that was made possible through the efforts of Ernie Barrett.
There's a reason why we refer to him as Mr. K-State. I think he loves K-State basketball. He loves K-State athletics. He's always supported the program or been involved in one way or another, and I think it's just been his passion.
He's more loyal to Kansas State than anybody could ever be. He's the first person that we think of when we think of K-State. We think of Ernie Barrett.
I can't imagine K-State without Ernie Barrett. Anybody watching this has probably shaken Ernie's hand and has the cramps to prove it.
Strongest handshake I've ever felt in my life, Ernie Barrett. And I remember before I met him, I don't know if it was Matt Seabrand, one of the guys that had said, when you shake his hand, be ready. And I shook his hand, and it was like the most powerful grip I've ever felt.
In recent years, he grabs me by the back of the head, and so my neck hurts and my hand hurts.
You better have your feet planted and not extend your arm too far when you shook his hand, because he'd pull your shoulder right out of socket.
Unbelievable gentleman. I think he is the one person that encompasses everything that Kansas State athletics stands for, everything that it is grown to be.
When people bring their children up to me and introduce them to me about being the statue outside that they shook hands with, sometimes brings tears to my eyes, because, you know, for anyone to have a statue of them is not only humbling, but unbelievable. To single me out, to have it there is overwhelming.